guys, I'm here with a more complicated example of mesh analysis. Here, as you can see, we have different meshes like 1, 2, 3, 4. But one thing that is different here from the other examples I did is that we have a current source in between our meshes. When we do have that, there's gonna be a concept called super mesh that we need to use. So to explain that, let's look at this figure in here. You can see here we have one mesh in here. This is our, let's call it our mesh 1. Here, maybe you think we'll say mesh 2 and mesh 3, but that's not what we do in here. Whenever we have a current source between two different mesh, we consider them as one big mesh in here, and we call this super mesh. That's the concept of super mesh. And then when we are writing our equation, we write our equations for mesh 1 and we write our equations for our super mesh. Say super mesh, and then we start going around it and then write KVL equations. But one thing we need to notice is that the currents are going to be different. We're going to have I1 in here, I2 in here, and I3 in here anyway. So this the currents are going to be different, but when we're writing the KVL equation, we write them all as a whole in the whole super mesh, not separately. That's not how we do it when we have a current source in between two different meshes. Here, so as we can see, we have when we want to say, okay, mesh 1, we come here, and then when we come across here, we see that there is like a current source. So we say, okay, so this mesh is gonna be combined with this one, and then we come here and we see there is another current source in here. So we're gonna combine this mesh also with them, and this whole thing are gonna be as one super mesh. And then we have another mesh in here. So here we have one whole super mesh and one mesh. So how do we write our equations? First things first, here again we're gonna define a current for each mesh separately. Here we don't define one whole current for the super mesh. We define them separately. So we say I1, I2, I3, and I4. First things, when we have such a big super mesh, and then as you can see we have 4 different variables here that we don't know what's I1, what's I2, 3, or 4. But we only can write one equation for our super mesh and one equation for this mesh. So what are we gonna do? First things first, we try to, as much as we can, figure out our currents with node analysis, and then we go and do the mesh analysis. So this is actually, in this question, we need to do node analysis and mesh analysis all at the same time. For example, if I say, because I see a current source in here, and then I see that we have an I2 and I1. And then if I call this A, let's say node A, we said that in node analysis, we say the currents that going through the node added up together are equal to the currents coming out of the node. So I2 is equal to, this current is 5 plus I1. So actually, that's what we have. Or we can say I1 is equal to I2 minus 5. It doesn't matter, whichever that's going to be useful for us. And then what else? If we look at here, we can see that we have I0 here, and then our I4 is the opposite direction of our I0. So we say I4 is equal to minus I0, or I0 is equal to minus I4. One more thing we have in here, if we say node B, Then we have I3 in this direction, we have I2 in this direction. The currents going through the node is I3 plus 3I0. Coming out is I2 equal to I2. Here we said I0 is minus I4. So instead of I0, we put minus I4. So we say I3 minus 3I4 is equal to I2. So then we go and there is no other equation here that we can use. So we use the nodal analysis in the nodes where we can use our current source that we have in order to find more equations for our variables. So we start with writing the equation for our supermesh. So for our supermesh, I start from here. I say 6I2 because the current here is I. And then I go around it, I find another resistance. The current is I1, so 2I1. Then I come down again. We're just considering the borders. We don't go down. We're just going to the border of our supermesh. Plus another resistance for the current here is I3. Then we're coming down. And we see that this I forgot to put that.